Hi folks, let's talk again, hidden values. Back again today. Sorry I'm so late today. It's been a really crazy day. It seems like today we're experiencing the fallout from yesterday's fallout from the weekend. And my brain has been really busy with things today, thinking about the rest of this vigil, Liberty Vigil for our 16 days here between Juneteenth and Independence Day, and also where we're going next after that. So it's been a kind of a crazy day. I did my little run through and then I was going to do the recording, and my tree guys, lawn guys, showed up right in between. So I didn't get to doing the recording till later. I apologize for posting so late. That won't be my norm, I hope. But anyway, thanks for joining me. And I just wanted to tell you, I hope you've had a great Tuesday. Here we are on Liberty Vigil. What is this, day 5? Yeah. It feels like it should be later than that, but Liberty Vigil, day 5. And I wanted to talk to you today about the rest of my life. I talked yesterday about hidden values, the name of the channel being Hidden Values, which several people had inquired about. And I know that for me, when I watch YouTube channels of random people I don't know anything about on YouTube, I'm always wondering, who is this person? Why are they talking to total strangers on YouTube? And what do they do when they're not driving in their car with their hands-free device, or sitting in their kitchen, or whatever? Who are they? What are they up to? So I decided to share a little bit about how Hidden Values fits in the larger picture of my life. And not just because I want to tell you about my life or you care, but also because the way that this has unfolded for me lately has come through a process that I think might be a helpful process. It's something that I intend to use with clients going forward. And it's related to one of the other approaches that I take with clients to understanding the healing process. And it's kind of a way of mapping out and thinking about our lives. And I've used things like it before, but there's a level of clarity to it for me after a recent pandemic retreat, which is kind of how I thought of our little COVID shutdown. And because I live in the woods, and I work for myself on my own schedule, and my family doesn't live here with me, that my son has grown. And so being able to have the luxury of this feeling like a retreat was something I'm grateful for. So a lot of cool things came out of that. And one of them was a lot of time to journal about things and think about my path forward, which is changing, of course, because our world is changing a lot. And then just as we were kind of adapting to the changes that are going to be coming down the pike with how we're adjusting to this virus, then of course we had kind of the political, social meltdown and the rioting in the streets, and that also necessitates some thinking about change, which is part of what relaunched me back into the YouTube world and doing this vigil on this channel. So that has provided a lot of things to think about and to pray about and to work on. So I just wanted to spend a little bit of time today talking with you about that. So to that end, I'm going to open just one page of my journal to the entire globe on YouTube, advisable or ill-advised as that may be. This is my life, the part of it that you are privy to. And I want to explain this little model. As my dad always used to say to me, and I know somebody else said it, but he was quite a quoter, as am I. So he used to say, all models are wrong, but some models are useful. And I have an acquaintance out in Colorado that said that to me a couple of years ago because, somebody said it to him, some professor said it to him. And I thought, oh, my dad used to say that. So this is a model that isn't, flawless, but it's useful to me anyway. I hope it'll be useful to you. So in this model of my life, it's clear to me that life is a whole, right? Life isn't a list of topics. It's a whole entity. But how we look at that whole in sections helps us to make it manageable and not be overwhelmed by it. So for me, the fact that this, we have a standard kind of X and Y axis model, and the way they intersect, of course, forms the cross, which is so appropriate for Christian faithful, for us to think of the cross as being both the center and kind of the guide for how we look outward from the center into the other, the outskirts of our life, if you will. because our personal practice and our walk with Christ is always the middle of what we're doing. So I'm going to start with this. And of course, when you have this XY axis, it divides things into quadrants. It's just geometry. So if we start with this one, we go in the direction of hidden values. And I'm going to tell you, this isn't close enough for you to read, but it doesn't matter because it's all backward. I'm like the weather girl today. Okay. So if you go into this little quadrant, you have hidden values. And the way the quadrants are formed by these axes, if you go this direction, you're going into the personal aspect of life. And if you go this direction, you're going more into the public aspect. Okay? And if you go down, we're getting kind of grounded into the daily realities of life. Some people would call it secular. People would even call it profane, which really just means daily. It doesn't mean nasty, foul, four-letter words. The word profane really just means daily. Or if we rise up here, we're talking about things that are sacred, things that are set apart, consecrated to a particular purpose, really. So, I mean, even people that don't profess a faith probably have things in their life, time in their life that's set apart for a dedicated purpose. And so those are the qualities that are going to divide these particular activities from one another, and going to help us characterize them, I guess I would say. So down in this corner of hidden values, it's clear that it falls into the category of being a personal endeavor, right? It's something that I'm just doing. I'm sitting here just talking to people. I'm talking to more than one person. It's not private exactly, but it's personal. It's not connected to my wider profession. There's not a guild of YouTubers that I'm part of doing this, right? I'm not part of a collaborative that's doing something. And it's also daily. It's specifically, the little descriptor of it for me is civil. This is my civil life. It's what I, as an individual person, am doing out in the world that is advancing my own understanding, my own being in the world, is to be working on this channel. So then, if I scoot over here to this next quadrant, it says Eutychus Enterprises, and that's my professional work. That's where I have training and a skill set and colleagues. I'm a spiritual director and I'm a craniosacral therapist, and I come out of a background of more traditional therapeutic work with emotional disturbance and trauma recovery and things like that. And in this realm, I'm talking about daily life, obviously, definitely the life in the world, but it's a public life, right? It's a place where there's a lot of in-person interaction, and there's a brand, and there's a particular set of guidelines, and there are guilds and rules and all of these kind of governing. There's like a career path and goals, and it's a very communal existence. It's not more the private existence that there is over here on the YouTube channel. So this is but because of the kind of work that I do here, which is basically helping people along their healing path through the telling of stories, right? And the reframing of stories. And because I'm doing healing work, the term that has emerged for that is shamanic. It's shamanic work because it's healing work through story, facilitating the telling of stories. And so in this arena, then we're combining being public but out in the world, right? So somebody else might have a different term for this because their work might be something completely different. But if your work life is something that is public and out in the world, it still might go here in this quadrant, if that makes sense. Then if we're going to come up here above this line, this line is the one that delineates, right, this hemisphere, which is everything that's of the world. Then everything above it is going to be the things that are not in the world, the things that are consecrated, set aside for a particular purpose, a sacred purpose, if we're people of faith. And so over here in the public arena, I have what's called my priestly life. By this, I don't mean that I am a priest or wish to be one in our tradition. Only certain people are priests, and it's not just men, it's only certain kinds of men. So, and they're amazing, and they have a really unenviable and difficult job. It's not one that I would want to even attempt. We really appreciate and love our priests. But all of the Christian faithful, even though we don't have a role in the church as a priest, we still have a priestly function within the church, which is that function of offering up, right? And there's a theologian, an Episcopal theologian, who writes really beautifully about this. I absolutely love it. And he says that our priestly function is to lift the creation into something higher, wider, and handsomer, which I think is excellent. His name's Robert Capon, Episcopal Father Robert Farrar Capon. So look him up. He's amazing. And if you're going to pick a book to start with, I'd start with The Third Peacock. It's one of my top 3 book recommendations of all time. It's a definite must-have. One of my Desert Island books. My Desert Island top 3 definitely would be this book. So, yeah, he's amazing. And that's a really good way to think about this. This priestly function is how are we lifting the creation into something higher, wider, and handsomer? And for me, this particular item is raise the roof, R-A-Z-E, the roof, take off the roof, and it refers to Christ healing a paralytic in Capernaum. This man was confined to bed, so his friends carried him on his bed to visit Jesus, and he was healing and teaching and preaching to a group of people in a house. And there was such a big crowd at the door, they couldn't get in. And so his friends climbed to the roof and took the thatching or the material off of the roof, the roofing material, and they lowered this man on his bed in through the roof so that he would have access to Jesus. And as somebody whose own health has given me a strange and winding journey into the church, Orthodox Church, my effort to help people find a pathway in who are struggling to do that for various reasons of disability or difficult stories with church in the past, leads me to embark on this endeavor, this raise the roof endeavor, to help the church adapt and to help people adapt to church. So that is kind of my public but sacred area of my life, is moving in this direction. And I've done some writing about that. Then if we look at this quadrant, which is my private endeavor in the sacred realm, it's something that I'm calling somewhat facetiously Airbnb, because it's an alternative to Airbnb, and because it's my hope that eventually it would be a network like that of Orthodox people opening their homes to guests and visitors. I'm getting my home ready to do that, chiefly for people that are in my community first, and then opening that to wider and larger rings of people, so that people have the opportunity. Orthodox people can travel or spend time together in other homes that have embraced an Orthodox lifestyle like they do. And people who are other kinds of Christians can understand what this kind of unusual and little known practice is. And for people who aren't Christians but have an interest in the beginnings of the church, the ancient church, can have an opportunity to see what that's like in a person's regular life. There are lots of people who might have a question, but they're not about to call up an Orthodox priest and ask them. And they're not going to walk in the door of any church service, much less one that's as non-modern and non-Western as an Orthodox service, and just sit there and feel awkward. So if there's a way for them to encounter our life of faith, which is very vibrant outside of our church services in our church building, that they have a chance to see that up close and personal in someone's home, and just have a casual conversation with Orthodox faithful about their life. So that's the intention for each one of these parts of my life. And they're each in different stages of reality right now, because I'm moving into some of them in a new way, and others have been ongoing for a while. But I just wanted to explain that mostly as a way of, first of all, letting you know these things are out there. If any of them interest you, contact me about them. But also just of laying out this model, right? There's this model of civil life, for me, shamanic work life, priestly offering up, and then domestic life. And that what's contained in it is going to be different for each person, but the way the things fit together, I think, is something that we can all reflect on, right? What's the balance between our personal and our public reality? What's the balance between living in the world but not being of the world? How are we doing? Where are we along each of these axes on any given day, at any given time? And I think keeping tabs on that is really important. And I think for a lot of us, it's undergone a shift, and probably a lot of shifts and a lot of swings back and forth because of this time of isolation and pandemic. I know that it did for me, and this was super clarifying. I also want to do a little shout out to Brett Weinstein specifically, and also his wife Heather Hying. They are both evolutionary biologists that do a great podcast called the Dark Horse Podcast. His brother Eric also is fantastic, and all of them have made tremendous contributions to my thinking about many things. But this Brett specifically, laid out at one point, almost as a side note or an afterthought, about the distinction between shamanic and priestly functions in culture. And it was really, really clarifying. So shout out to him, and many thanks for their podcast and their work, as well as that one particular insight. So that is this. Thank you for joining me for this. I'll come back tomorrow. Always like, share, subscribe, comment, ring the bell for notifications if you want to know when these are being posted. Hopefully they won't always be as late as tonight. Sorry about that. And I will have more news for you tomorrow. Thanks for being here, and I will see you again soon. Take care. Have a good night.